Good evening and welcome to the Compliance Department portion of today's presentation. I'm Matt and I'm the Manager of Compliance. Today we're going to be going over our Compliance Department staff, and then we'll also go over the Compliance Department services that we offer to you. But first, I'd like to start off by going over a scenario that I've seen occur way too often. Imagine, as a group health plan broker, you've just sold your client a great new health plan and they couldn't be happier. But now imagine 2 years later, you're sitting at your desk, at your office, and you get a phone call, and it's from that same client, and they're frantically telling you that now they're being audited by the Department of Labor because they forgot to file their annual report that's required under ERISA. And now they're facing penalties of over $2,000 per day. This is what I call the compliance nightmare, and we're here to help you avoid that nightmare. So let me talk about our compliance professionals that are available to you. Karen is our Director of Compliance. Karen joined the firm in June of 2016, and prior to joining the firm, Karen worked for the Land of Lincoln Legal Assistance Foundation as a legal aid attorney. And she also volunteered as a healthcare attorney for a federal qualified health center. She received her JD from the Indiana Maurer School of Law, and she received her LLM in healthcare from the Loyola University Chicago School of Law. And as I mentioned before, I'm Matt, and I'm the Manager of Compliance. I joined the firm in June of 2018. And prior to joining the firm, I worked for the Illinois Medicaid Managed Care Organization as a contracted attorney, and also interned as a legal intern for the Illinois Health Insurance Marketplace during law school. I received my JD and my health law certificate from the Loyola University Chicago School of Law. Now back to that compliance nightmare. How are we going to help you avoid it? Well, we have advisors that are available to you. They go over group health plan compliance topics, as well as written summaries of the laws and regulations that govern these compliance topics. So, for instance, these advisors will go over these important filing deadlines and make you aware of them so you aren't missing them and facing large penalties. Also available to you, we have in-person training as well as webinars, because people learn in different ways. Some people prefer to listen to the material, while others prefer to read it. We also, if you have a specific compliance question, we have our compliance help desk that is available to you and can answer those questions in a timely fashion. And we also have 2 compliance committees that are available. Now let's go into a little more detail about our compliance advisors. So if you're wondering how the Affordable Care Act applies to your group health plan, we have ACA advisors, which deal exclusively with the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Now maybe you're wondering about topics outside of the Affordable Care Act. Well, we have general compliance advisors, which goes over topics outside of the Affordable Care Act, which include ERISA, COBRA, cafeteria and account-based plans, such as HRAs, FSAs, and HSAs, as well as Medicare, just to name a few topics. We also issue advisors on an as-needed or monthly basis because the laws are constantly changing and the agencies are constantly issuing new regulations. So to stay on top of that, we issue advisors as needed and on a monthly basis. So for instance, at the beginning of each month, we release a compliance recap that highlights the laws and regulations that were released in the prior month, and also goes over any ongoing matters, such as the current court case that's challenging the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. Separate from these advisors, we have a large document called our ACA Summary, which is an all-in-one guide to the provisions of the Affordable Care Act that affect group health plans. This document is meant to be a teaching tool for somebody who is completely unfamiliar with the Affordable Care Act. Now, it's much longer than most of our advisors that we have available. Most of our advisors are around 5 to 10 pages long, and we do that to keep it in an easy-to-read format. However, this document is over 300 pages long, and is a historical reference of the Affordable Care Act and the changes that it's gone through since its passage in 2010. Now, let me talk about those webinars that I mentioned. We have 4 different webinars that are available to you. We have our employer webinar series, which is offered each month. We have a quarterly compliance call. We have a compliance cafeteria session that's offered every other month. And then we also have a Compliance 101 online course, which is a 9-week online course that goes over group health plan compliance basics, and it's offered once a year. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to go over that first webinar, and I'm going to save the other webinars for a later date. So our employer webinar series is offered on the second Tuesday of each month, and it is moderated by our firm, and it is presented by attorneys for the law firm of Fisher Phillips. Fisher Phillips is a national employee benefits law firm, and they present on topics that are chosen by our Client Compliance Solutions Committee. These presentations last for about an hour long, and during the presentation, the attendees can type in their questions to the attorneys that are presenting. If there's time at the end of the presentation, the attorneys will answer the questions that have been asked. After each webinar, a post-webinar Q&A is sent out to each attendee that answers each of the questions that was addressed in that webinar. As an added bonus, attendees can receive HRCI or SHRM credit for attending the entire webinar that they can apply to their HR certification requirements. So if you're an HR professional looking for a good way to get credit that you can apply to your license, this webinar series is a great option for you. Now, you may be wondering, how much are these webinar series going to cost me? Well, to the general public, to attend each webinar would cost $200, but as a client, you have free access to each of these webinars. Also, as a client, you receive a priority code that you can give out as many times as you would like, and it gives the recipient of this code a $50 discount off of that $200 price. If you know that you have a lot of clients that are going to be interested in this service, you can subscribe to our employer webinar series, and for the cost of $150 a month, you can have 25 seats that you can give out to your clients or prospects, and they will be able to attend the webinar at no cost. Now, you shouldn't worry about ever missing a webinar because we record each of these sessions. So if you happen to miss one, you can just go onto our site and download the recorded version, and you have complimentary access to this. If you subscribe to our employer webinar series, you will receive a recording after each webinar, and we will co-brand this recording for you with your firm's logo, and then you can send that recording out to your clients or prospects. I want to thank you for your attention to this presentation, and I look forward to working with you and helping you avoid the compliance nightmares. Thank you.